Chapter 26. The Tower of Babel. Genesis 11, 1-9. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they all have one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Genesis 11, 1-9. At this time, all men spoke a common tongue, so that mankind had an easy unity in speech. This, however, was not enough for them. They sought an even closer unity against God, verses 1 and 4. God's name and his person are not mentioned even obliquely. All the same, men's thinking was anti-God. The death of God school of thoughts of the early 1970s did not say that God was actually dead, but merely that he was dead for them because they refused to acknowledge his existence as relevant for them. So too with mankind at this point. God was to be ignored and an order built apart from him. Men settled in Shinar, later known as Mesopotamia. At that time, the climate was less dry and more adapted to a variety of uses. They had pitch there in abundance and the materials for bricks. This area later became Babylonia. Quote, Go to, end quote, in verses 4 and 7, means come, that is, let us unite in this venture, which they did. The objects of construction were two, a city and a tower. The tower in question is a ziggurat, a stepped pyramid. Each successive story is recessed so that a ziggurat began on the base of some acres ascends to a considerable height. The top floor is then a smaller area, one used at times for astronomical and astrological purposes, and also as the centre for the rulers of the highest degree. Freemasonry has deliberately aped the Babel ideas to create successively higher degrees of membership in the lodge. There is a difference with respect to the meaning of the word Babel. The Bible tells us, verse 9, that it means confusion, whereas in ancient Akkadian it means, quote, gate of God, Babilu, end quote. The tower meant one thing to God, another to men seeking to be as their own God in terms of Genesis 3:5. Men decided to build, quote, a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, verse 4. This idiom does not mean a literal skyscraper reaching up to heaven physically. It's an idiom for a power center equaling God. Apart from Scripture, men have many false assumptions concerning reality, one common belief being that life is a common property shared by man and whatever gods may be. The goal of many scientists then becomes the conquest of death and therefore the possession of godlike powers. The tower was to be a governmental and scientific center for man to make himself the new god over all the earth. Then the plan was this, quote, let us make us a name, verse 4, or a shem, meaning let us define ourselves, fix and establish our authority so that we are what we declare ourselves to be. Instead of being defined by the image of God, Genesis 1:26-28, man now held that he would be his own creature in creation and would define himself. If man becomes a self-definer, he then, like a god, names or defines everything else. He can then define God or define him out of existence, supposedly. The reason for this was, quote, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Verse 4. A basic doctrine of theology is the unity of the Godhead. No God can be truly a God if he is divided within himself. Every humanistic attempt to replace God with a one-world humanistic order leads to efforts to bring all mankind under a common civil government. This is a theological necessity. The ultimate power cannot be a divided power. Every effort is made to compel human unity in the name of the new faith. In verses 5 to 9, we have a grim and ironic response from God. It is also sardonically humorous. God surveys what man has done and is doing. Verse 5. The people are one in this new world order. Their language is one, and now they are creating a world government to play God over mankind. Verse 6. With such a power over mankind, quote, nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Verse 6. Total power will mean total government and control. When men play God, they primarily seek to dominate other men. They then turn science and knowledge into strategies of control in every sphere of life and thought. God therefore declared that he would, quote, go down, end quote, that is, be present in their midst in judgment. He would so confound their speech that in time, whether at once or over a span of years or generations, they would be unable to understand one another and would be scattered. Verse 7. The builders, quote, left off to build the city. Verse 8. They began to scatter over all the face of the earth. The name of the place is thus Babel, because God there brought confusion to man's language and thereby scattered mankind over all the earth. Verse 9. The Hebrew word for scatter means not only to disperse, but also to break into pieces, to smash. Revelation tells us that this dream of the Tower of Babel is endemic to man in his sin. We see repeated efforts to recreate this anti-God order, but in Revelation 14:8 and 17:5, we are told of God's final judgment in history against this evil dream. The Babylon dream is allowed by God to come to some kind of final fruition before it is destroyed forever.